I said a couple of years ago that I was afraid that we would get to a place where we couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. I don't know if we've gotten there. I have no idea if we've gotten there, but I do think that's on the table. I do think there is a scenario of which reasonable people so practically disagree that there's light years between, and I use myself as an example, Rev. I've always prided myself in being able to work across the aisle in my political life. I've never been opposed to reasoning with a Democrat. I mean, I disagree with them, but I found in Columbia there were a lot of those guys who had a lot of common with me. And, you know, they didn't want to cut funding this much, but they would do it that much. What I've argued is, and I think the double standard is the narrative that the right is driven, this fringe-based politics. I think the right is far less guilty of fringe-based politics than the left. Now, if I wanted to be a good old boy, which I am, and I wanted to say something a little bit reckless and careless, which I will, I don't mean this, but there's a sentiment out there, and I'm well aware of it because I talk to the good old boys a lot. The George Soroses of the world, the CNNs of the world, the Maxine Waters of the world, the Barack Obamas, the Hillary Clintons, the John Brennans, and now Robert De Niro. You want to run your mouth about the president? Here's what you get if you do that. I think that's a reckless attitude to have, and I would never ever be in agreement with that sort of tactic.
We certainly don't know that that's the motive.
But, I mean, we don't know whether the bombs could even explode or not. We have no idea. None of the bombs were detonated. None of the bombs exploded. We don't know if they're toy bombs. We have no idea. So I'm not going down that road. I think the more important discussion to have is, can we, I'm not saying about where do we go to put it back together. Can we put the country back together? Can we be civil towards one another? Because, Rev, I believe a lot of people who see the world as I do feel like our rights have been so infringed upon and the media's never given us a fair shake. I'm not whining. I'm not crying about it. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, but I think there's a sentiment amongst people on our side that there has been an incredible double standard in play for a long, long time. Did you know that after Susan Collins voted to confirm Brett Kavanaugh, a suspicious white powder showed up at her house? You didn't know if you didn't watch Fox News. I mean, Fox News, and I think the Washington Post had a below-the-fold article for one day. Now, and here we go with a double standard. And you know, that's kind of where we are. Here's the deal. Nobody will say it, I will. They don't like us very much, and we don't like them. But let's be candid. Let's be honest. I don't care much for Hillary Clinton. I don't dislike her enough to send a bomb to her house. I don't care much for Robert De Niro. Great actor, great entertainer, great performer. I'll not stop going to see movies with Robert De Niro simply because of his political disposition. Hillary Clinton showed you what she thinks of you. In her most honest moment of the campaign, she believes that you are deplorable. She believes that you are a wretched soul who doesn't deserve the equal opportunity that she does. She believes that people on her side have the moral and intellectual high ground. Barack Obama believes that people on that side have the moral and intellectual high ground. CNN has been the most critical of this president, even more so than MSNBC. I mean, and you know, it's like Jeff Greenfield said the other week. There's not a moment in the day that I can't turn CNN on, and it's just nonstop. I mean, it's like the greatest police video marathon on True TV or something. I mean, it's the hits never stop. It's Trump sucks, Trump sucks, Trump sucks, Trump sucks. Trump's a crook, Trump's a crook, Trump's a crook, Trump's a crook. The supporters of Trump are fringe, the supporters of Trump are fringe, the supporters of Trump. Well, I mean, sooner or later, that grates on people. Sooner or later, when the Washington Post, New York Times, everybody out there reporting on political discourse report that there's something wrong with this Trump base. They're violent, they're out of control, they're deplorable. There are a lot of other things. Well, what I want you to understand is the sincerity of which they mean that. They believe you're deplorable. That they believe because you're uneducated, you're a little less affluent, you don't understand how government works, you're not quite sophisticated enough. You are the one who gave them Donald Trump. Remember me saying this before, their problem's not really with Trump. I mean, Trump enjoys the notoriety, and Trump enjoys his street fight. I mean, he does. I mean, he's wired for that. He's cut for that. But the problem is those of us who sent Trump to Washington. That's what they find so deeply disgusting. The people that aren't quite worth as much, the people that aren't quite as educated, the people that, you know, they don't have the important jobs, the important metropolitan areas. And if you really peel the onion back, I always say that there's always a core and a crux of the problem. And I've always argued, I mean, a Manhattan real estate developer billionaire, that's right in their wheelhouse. With a private jet, who has golf courses all over the world, I mean, why would they be disgusted with somebody like that? He went to University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School of Finance. I mean, he's an Ivy Leaguer. He's an Ivy League billionaire Manhattan business guy. But the elites didn't elect him. The deplorables elected him. And they find that so disgusting. And instead of covering politics, I'm going to the media, instead of covering politics as politics deserves to be covered, they became a part of the resistance. And Trump accepted the challenge and started calling them fake news. And the animosity increased. And the vitriol became more evident one towards the other. And we've ended up here. And I have no idea. And once again, I'm not condoning anybody ever doing that. I'm simply explaining how someone could rationalize doing that. Here's what I think. I'll give you what I think we're going to find out. I don't think the bombs were ever intended to go off. I'm not sure the bombs were even equipped to detonate. The bombs were to send a message. And the message was a bit amateurish and a little bit bizarre, very dangerous. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, nobody would condone. I mean, I don't think anybody would. I mean, there's some on the left. I mean, we got I mean, if you really want to go down the road of radicalism, then look no further than Barack Obama, fairly radical political figure. Now, Obama never encouraged anybody to fight in the street or, put somebody in an arm lock, an arm bar. Now, he did say if they bring a knife, you bring a gun. Now, the media didn't report on that. I mean, that's fairly inflammatory for a president to, but I mean, that is the obvious double standard that we're dealing with this morning. I would just pose this question, and I think it's a fair question. What if this morning a bomb had been dropped off at the Koch brothers headquarters, and a bomb had been sent to Paul Ryan, and a bomb had been sent to Jared Kushner's mama or father? A bomb had been sent to the Heritage Foundation. Do you really believe there would be the explosive coverage, no pun intended, that there has been over the last 48 hours? No. There's an absolute double standard. And the insinuation is the media already knows who did it. Governor Cuomo already knows who did it. Mayor de Blasio already know who did it. Everybody believes that it may be the case. And if it is, shame on anybody. It may be the most rabid, red hat wearing, make America great again, redneck deplorable in the history of mankind who concocted this idea and thought it would be good to send a bomb. So, I mean, that's what we may find that out. And if it is, prosecute him to the nth degree. Put him in jail for a long time. I think it's 50-50. I mean, I told you about the bomb that was sent, or excuse me, the potential explosive device that was sent to Maxine Waters, had an ISIS flag, or kind of a facsimile of an ISIS flag, and "Get Her Done" written on it. That's odd. That's real odd. I mean, that's very odd. It's a little bit Saturday Night Live-ish. I'm in the Liars Club. Yeah, I'm president of the Liars Club. So not only am I going to put an ISIS flag, I'm going to write "Get Her Done." So they'll really know how redneck I am. They'll really know how deplorable I am. There was some misspelling of John Brennan's name on the envelope that had the potential explosive device. Is that intentional? Is that manipulative? Is that sincere? I have no idea. So I'm not going to try to argue that I know where the bombs came from. What I'm arguing is there is a high level of energy on both political fronts. And I'm not sure and I hate to be the I told you so guy, but I think I've said many times for the past, been on the air over 6 years, pretty much the entire time I've been on the air, I've told our listeners over and over again, probably more than they care to hear, that there is a battle brewing, but the battle will not be ideology. The battle will not be about whether government's too big and spends too much money, whether government's too small and spends too little money, whether the rich are being advantaged, whether the poor are being too propped up. I just always felt that we would end up in some sort of political event where the dividing line was what? The elites, the establishment, the political class, the ruling class, permanent Washington, whatever you want to refer to them as, had a bunch of disengaged folks. I think the election was a result of that. Talk about the Rust Belt, the deindustrialization of the Midwest, the hollowing out of the economy. Those people voted with their middle finger, and along came Donald Trump. And the political ecosystem has been created and conditioned to operate a certain way, Rev. A and then B and then C and then D and then E. A and B and C and E and D. I mean, that's just the way the world worked. And along came kind of a disruptive force. And nobody's really made a good adjustment to Donald Trump's disruption in the world of politics. The question I pose, and I've not come up with an answer myself. I'm afraid I know the answer, and I'm afraid it gets worse before it gets better. And I'm afraid that we'll divide them at our side and their side, for argument's sake. I'm afraid that their side doesn't give a rat's rear end about you, and I'm afraid our side doesn't give a rat's rear end about them. I go back to my personal story. I don't know how, as someone who considers himself to be reasonable and practical and diplomatic, I don't know how you reason with a socialist. I don't know that there's not any common ground. I mean, I don't know how CNN expects anybody on our side to respect the job they do when 91% of the coverage is negative about the president. What else do we do? Now, certainly we don't send bombs or dangerous powders. Nobody does that. No sane person does that. I don't give a damn how permanently married to your political opinions you are. Nobody has a right nor should consider sending a bomb to someone else's house or business. I mean, that's not an option. That's not option A, B, C. That's not even an option. You can't do that. You got to be sick and deranged to believe it's okay to build a bomb and hook it up and put it in a box, hoping somebody on the other end opens the box and it blows them to smithereens. That's a sick person. That's a sick, deranged maniac. It could be a sick, deranged, conservative, Trump-supporting maniac. It could be a sick, deranged, liberal, socialist Democrat. But they're sick and deranged if they believe that that is an option. That can't be an option. But my question is, what is the option? I mean, if we've come so divided, and this is what I've always said about American arrogance, we believe that everything's going to be okay. And I've never ascribed to that notion. I've never believed that America could last forever. I've never believed that certain forces could destroy what we've got. And I think you're incredibly ill-informed and arrogant if you believe something other than that. If enough energy on each side is possessed and motivated by that energy, we can destroy anything. And I think we're beginning to destroy. I mean, we talk about lack of faith in institutions. How many people really trust the government? How many Republicans really care to sit down and talk with a Democrat? How many Democrats really care to sit down and talk with a Republican? There is no energy there. All the energy is in different places, and every bit of that energy, it seems to me, is causing permanent damage to the American experience. If I can't find a Democrat on the other side, I mean, there's no way Bernie Sanders and I could sit down and resolve an issue. There's no way. I'm not going there. He's obviously not coming to where I am. So when we have these irreconcilable differences, what is plan B? I mean, plan A was, you're a little bit left of center, I'm a little bit right of center, let's find middle ground, let's govern the country. And I'm speaking as a Republican. I mean, I see the world in a certain way, and I'm not going to forsake my views or values for the sake of getting along. I'm not going to do that. I mean, I think I could easily reason with Democrats in Columbia. Been to Columbia as a politician. I've dealt with Democrats. We can easily agree, but we're not light years apart. I'm arguing now we're light years apart. I mean, Madonna, who is a revered star of the left. She's a phenomenal entertainer and has a Hall of Fame musical career. Like her or not, tip your hat to Madonna. And she's apparently got a real good nutritionist because time has been kind to Madonna. Yeah. I think she's about my age. You don't look it. But anyway, inject a little humor here in a serious conversation.
Thanks for that.
Madonna said, I thought about blowing up the White House. It was celebrated. Absolutely celebrated. Did the media chastise and condemn Madonna? I mean, a lot of people listen to Madonna. A lot of people pay Madonna close attention. Did the media chastise Madonna when she said that? When Barack Obama said, if they bring a knife, you bring a gun. Did the media chastise to that? So if you're asking my side, the majority of our listeners, I guess, are on my side, or they'd be listening to something else. When you ask my side to be fair and open-minded, give me an example of you ever being fair and open-minded. Give me an example of the media ever not applying the double standard. And the media is in panic mode today because they see an opportunity to blame somebody. The media's already established who did this. They know how gullible the American public are. They know how easily misled we can be. So they've already established if we tell the story that this was some, fear-mongering Trumpster who hates anybody who doesn't look nor sound like him, then that'll kind of settle the score. That'll settle in and be the case. The New York Times reporter, I want to read it verbatim. I think it's very interesting. I mean, this is the paper of record in America, is what we've always been told. Here's the New York Times exact quote. Mrs. Clinton, Mr. Obama, Mr. Soros, and CNN have all figured prominently in conservative political attacks, many of which have been led by President Trump. He is often referred to major news organizations as the enemy of the people. I think he said fake news, the enemy of the people. And he's had a particular animus for CNN. So see, they're already creating a narrative. We know who did this. Wink, wink. You know who did this. One of those crazy Trump supporters. That may be the case. That may be exactly where we end up. But we don't know today. So how do you change the narrative? How does the media, how do the power structure who report the news to all of us, how do they change the narrative if indeed it is somebody other than? a rabid, deranged Trump supporter. Let's take a break. Back in a minute. Schofield's is our sponsor. 843-661-0937, our number.